Class 10 Biology, Chapter 3, How Do Organisms Reproduce? Video number 3. The topics covered are sexual reproduction. In this topic, I'll be discussing about features of sexual reproduction, advantages of sexual reproduction over asexual reproduction, how chromosomal number is maintained in sexually reproducing organism when there are two parents involved, and the differences between sexual and asexual reproduction. Sexual reproduction is a mode of reproduction in which new individuals are produced by the process of formation and fusion of gametes. The process of reproduction involves two parents, a male parent and a female parent. The male parent produces the male gametes, whereas the female parent produces the female gamete. And when the male and the female gamete fuses, then a single cell is formed, which is called as the zygote, that later develops into a new individual. So here the process involves formation and fusion of gametes. The process is biparental. Now, in the beginning of the chapter, we had discussed that the basic event that occurs during reproduction is DNA copying. It's because the DNA has got the genetic information of the parent. The body design that an individual has is contained in the DNA. So, and when the individual reproduces, it has to pass its body design to the next generation. That means the DNA that is contained in the individual has to be copied. And so this is the basic event that occurs during reproduction. Now, at that time, it was also discussed that when DNA is being copied, when the parental DNA is copied, the new DNA copy that is made, that is not 100% identical. It is not 100% identical. Okay, why it's not 100% identical? Because the biochemical reactions that are involved in this process, they do not go 100% accurately. So inaccuracies do occur, and these inaccuracies or error in DNA copying, the error in DNA copying, that results in variations. Okay, that will result in variation, and variations are very important because they help the organism to get adapted. It helps the organism to get adapted to the changes that happens in the environment. So variations, they are very important for the survival of the species. It's already discussed that all individuals may not be protected under variation, but when we talk about a population, then the variations in the individuals in a population will help in the survival of a species. So variations do happen, but in case of asexually reproducing organism, the variations that are produced are minor variations. Why minor variation? Because the variations that are produced are only because of error in DNA copying. And as already said, that these errors should be minor error. They should be minor error. That is, when the DNA is being copied, errors do happen, variations do happen, but these should be small errors, because if suppose the error that is produced, like every generation, you can see here in this diagram, the amount of error that occurs is quite less. So that's why the new individuals that are produced are, we say in case of asexually reproducing organism, that the new individuals that are produced are genetically identical. They're almost like that of the parent. Okay, they are almost like that of the parent, because the errors are minor. Because if suppose there is major error occurring, or drastic changes occur, or drastic variation occurs in just one step, in one step itself, a drastic error every time the individual reproduces, if suppose drastic changes occur, then that we had discussed that DNA with a drastic change, like if it's very much different from that of the parental DNA, such a DNA will not be able to work with the cellular apparatus, will not work, and so such a cell or individual will die. It will die. So in case of asexually reproducing organism, the only cause of variation is the very minor errors that happen during DNA copying. And that's why, because of the fact that there is slow variations produced, because every generation there will be very small change in the DNA that occurs, so variations produced are quite slow. And because of this, we say that asexual reproduction is not very important. It is not important from the point of evolution. It's not important, because for evolution to occur, for a new species to be formed, the variations in every step should be quite a lot. But then if suppose variations is quite a lot due only because of DNA copying, then that DNA will not be able to work. So how can this process of creating variation be made faster? It will be possible only through the process of sexual reproduction. And the reason behind that is that in case of sexual reproduction, there are two parents that are involved. So, two parents will be contributing their genetic material through the gametes, right? We had discussed, I've discussed already that in the process of sexual reproduction, there are gametes involved. So, there are two individuals contributing their genetic materials or DNA, a DNA which has accumulated variation. You can see in this diagram that these parents, they contribute their genetic material, and this genetic material has already accumulated variation from the previous generations, from their ancestors. Okay, because these individuals, they also have two parents, so their parents contributed their genetic material. And because of this fact that every generation you find there are two individuals contributing their genetic material which has accumulated variations from the previous generations, so every step you find there'll be more variation. The DNA that is contributed to the next generation will be accumulating more variations. There'll be more variations accumulated. So because of the fact that two parents contribute their genetic materials or DNA which has accumulated variations from the previous generation, you find there are more variations produced in case of sexually reproducing organisms, right? There are new combinations that happen because of the gametes being involved. So more variation in every step, you'll find there'll be good amount of variations that are produced. And since the young one acquires the genetic materials from two parents, you find that the young one will not be an exact copy of any of the two parents. Rather, it will be having some features of both the parents and some more new features the individuals will be having, right? So you find that there is more variations produced during sexual reproduction, the organisms that reproduces sexually. And here you find that there are different causes for this huge amount of variation produced, because here it's not just error in DNA copying that results in variation. It's not just error in DNA copying. There in case of sexually reproducing organism, there is gametes that are involved, and so during gamete formation there are certain changes that happen that will result in more variation. So what are those events that takes place during gamete formation that results in more variation? Let us see. There is, like, when the gamete, first of all, these gametes, they are produced by a type of cell division which is called as meiosis. It's not the same as that of a normal cell division, where suppose if you get a cut and healing occurs, then there is the healing will occur by a type of cell division called as mitosis. Now what is the difference between meiosis and mitosis? In case of mitosis, the chromosomal number, every cell you've learned in the nucleus has got fixed, there are chromosomes present. So the chromosomal number in the daughter cells that are produced will be the same as that of the parent cell in case of mitosis. But in case of meiosis, you find that the daughter cells which are produced will have half the number of chromosomes than that of the parent cell, right? Means in the parents, if you, in this case, what you see, you find that the parents, they are having parental cell has got four chromosomes. At the end, this is only two chromosomes, so chromosomal number becomes half. Okay, there is, and this is required in case of sexually reproducing organism. What would happen if there is no, this process does not happen? In case the process does not happen, then if suppose a parent, in case of human beings, as you all know that there are 23 pairs of chromosomes present in the individual, right? Every individual cells has got 23 pairs of chromosomes. If suppose the gametes that they produce will have 23 pairs, I'm talking about human beings, then when the gametes fuse, the zygote that is formed will have 46 pairs, because there are two parents involved. And then when this individual will reproduce, it will again involve another individual. So again the next generation, 46 plus 46 means there will be 92 pairs of chromosomes. Means every generation, if this process goes the way I have said you, then every generation the number of DNA or the amount of DNA or the genetic material is going to double. It will double. But this does not actually happen. The chromosomal number is maintained in sexually reproducing organism. It is definitely maintained. And how it is maintained? It's maintained by the process of meiosis. Now, in case of sexually reproducing organism, there are reproductive organs which produce the gametes. And in those reproductive organs, the cells that are involved, when they produce the gametes, they undergo a type of cell division which is called as meiosis, where the chromosomal number becomes half. So what actually happens in this? The cells will have chromosomes in pairs, right? There will be two chromosomes of each type. And when this gametes are produced, the chromosomes which are present in pair, they get separated. Means the gametes will get only one chromosome of each pair. Only one chromosome of each pair. So here suppose there are two pairs of chromosome, at the end you've got only one pair of one chromosome from each of the pair is in a passed to the gametes, right? So this happens. There is reshuffling of chromosomes. There is reshuffling of chromosomes that occurs during gamete formation. Okay, and if in case of our body cells, you find that there are, as I said, there are chromosomes which are present in pairs. So if this is one pair of chromosome, one chromosome that we have is of father's origin, paternal origin, one is maternal. Similarly, the other pair also you find, if we have got 23 pairs, we'll have 23 chromosomes, that is we have got from your father, and 23 we have got from our mother. And when the gametes are produced, it's not that whatever those 23 chromosomes that you have got from your father will go to one gamete and 23 of the mother will go to the other. It is a random separation. It does not happen that way. There is random separation of chromosomes. There is random separation of chromosomes during gamete formation. Okay, so of the two, it could be that one chromosome of paternal origin, one of maternal origin has gone. Of one pair, paternal origin chromosome has gone, one which was inherited from father, and the other it may be the maternal origin. Okay, so in this way there is a random separation. So this random separation of chromosome results in more variation. And there's also an event, though it's not mentioned in your NCERT book, there's an event that occurs during gamete formation. This event, this is called as crossing over. This is called as crossing over. So in this event, as you can see here in this diagram, before the chromosomes, which I said you of the pair, only one is going to go to one and the other is going to the other gamete. So before this the chromosome, before they get separated, what they do is that in the pair, when they get before they get separated, they will exchange a small amount of their genetic material, and this process is what is called as crossing over. So since the genetic material is being exchanged, you find that there is more variation occurring. This is another reason. So the reasons for more variation that is produced in sexual reproduction, one is error in DNA copying, because DNA is being copied and that's passed to the next generation through the gametes. But then this will result only minor variation. But more variations are because of chance separation of chromosomes during gamete formation, and this chance pairing of chromosome during fertilization, because when fertilization occurs, huge number of gametes are produced. So any gamete with any kind of combination can fuse with the other. So you find that because of these things, because of the random separation of chromosomes during gamete formation and random or chance pairing of chromosome during gamete formation, and one more event that I said you, crossing over, Okay, crossing over during gamete formation or during meiosis and error in DNA copying. Because of all these things, every generation you find huge variation taking place. But this variation will not affect the individual or the cell because it's passed from the individual to the next. So it's not going to affect. It's not because of DNA error in DNA copying. It's because of these all events occurring. Okay, so that's why you find that the young ones of sexually reproducing organisms, they are not an exact copy. But in case of asexually reproducing organism, the young ones are an exact copy of the parent because the variations that are produced in asexual reproduction is only due to error in DNA copying. Okay, and these variations, they are very important. They are very important because they help the individuals to get pre-adapted to the changes that happen in the environment. Variations are important for survival of a species. It's already discussed. So a better survival, a better opportunity will be provided. It's because of more variation being produced, and these variations are important for evolution also. So since more variations are produced in case of sexually reproducing organism, you find that the process is much important for evolution to occur. And it also is important because it gives individuality to the organisms. We are able to identify each other. It's because of the variations that we have, right? So these are all the advantages of sexual reproduction over asexual reproduction. Now coming to the features of sexual reproduction. Sexual reproduction, as in the I have said you, it is biparental. Okay, it is by, let's just sum up what are the important features. Sexual reproduction requires two parents or two individuals, so the process, we say it as biparental. It is biparental. Each individual or organism will produce gametes. The process involves gametes. So the role of individual is to produce gametes. And what are gametes? Gametes are the sex cells which take part in the process of reproduction, right? So the two individuals that are involved, one is a male and other is a female. The male contributes the gametes which are called, in generally they are called as sperms, and the female, the gamete that are produced is called as a ovum, right? And this process, so the process finally, apart from being gametes being produced, the process involves fusion of gametes. So when the gametes fuse, a single cell is formed called as a zygote. The single cell that is formed is called as a zygote, which later develops into a complete individual. So these are the features of sexual reproduction. Okay, and here this is the advantages of sexual reproduction are shown over here. Here you can see that what are the advantages. Just let's sum up. The offsprings that are produced sexually, they are different from that of the parent. First thing, the variations that are produced gives rise to variety and diversity. Variations enables the organism to get adapted to the changes in the environment, and this will help in prevent the complete extinction of a species because there are more variations produced in case of sexually reproducing organism. So if there is a sudden change in the environment, this is not going to cause elimination of the species. So these are the advantages. As I said you that the process involves fusion of gametes. So this process of fusion of male and female gamete to produce a zygote is called as fertilization. And fertilization can either be external or internal. So in case of external fertilization, which occurs in fishes, and in case of frogs or amphibians, the fusion of male and female gamete occurs in water, right? In some insects also this process takes place. So insects, in case of amphibians or frogs, or in case of fishes, you find that fusion of male and female gamete occurs in water. Whereas in case of internal fertilization, the fusion of gametes occurs inside the body of the female parent. Okay, so inside the body, the sperms are released inside the body of the female parent and their fertilization occurs. So fertilization can be either internal or external. Okay, and one more very important thing to be said is that I said you that the chromosomal number becomes half after the gametes are formed. This is very much required. I said you, if this will not happen, then every generation you'll find that the chromosomal number will double. The amount of DNA is going to double. So here, when the individual, when the reproductive organs, inside the reproductive organs, the cells which are present, when they divide to produce gametes, you find that the chromosomal number becomes half than that of the other cells. The other cells, like if you are asked about the difference between the non-reproductive cells and the reproductive cells have half the number of chromosomes than that of the non-reproductive cells. Then when will the chromosomal number be restored? It will be only when the male and the female gametes fuses. So when the male and the female gamete fuses, right? When it fuses, when the zygote is formed, the male and the female gamete with half the number of chromosomes, when they fuse, then the chromosomal number will be again restored. Okay, so the parents will have double the number of chromosomes that non-reproductive cells will be having. When the gametes are produced, the chromosomal number becomes half, and again when the male and the female gamete fuses, then the chromosomal number will be restored. And then this zygote which is formed will be dividing. It will divide into huge number of cells by a type of cell division where the chromosomal number will be retained. It will be maintained. That means all the cells will have the same number of chromosomes. That is what is called as mitosis. So this the zygote will divide by the process of mitosis, and then huge number of cells will be formed, and then differentiation occurs and a complete individual will be formed. So zygote has two sets of chromosomes, whereas the gametes has only one set of chromosomes. Okay, so in this way, the chromosomal number is maintained in case of sexually reproducing organisms. Now, the zygote for dividing for its development into a complete individual, it requires energy, it requires food. So where is this food stored? From where will the zygote get the food? It is from the gametes itself. Like you find, let's see about the gametes. What kind of gametes are produced by sexually reproducing organisms? In case of lower organisms, lower animals and plants, you find that the gametes that are produced, the male and the female gamete that is produced, is almost identical. There may be small differences or they may be exactly the same. One may not be able to differentiate. But in case of higher plants and in case of animals, you generally find that the female gamete is larger than the male gamete. The male gamete is generally, it is motile. The male gamete is motile and the female gamete, it is non-motile. That is, it does not move. Whereas the male gamete, it has got a tail for moving. This you find in case of the higher animals. In case of animals, the small motile male gamete is also referred to as sperms, whereas a non-motile female gamete is also called as ovum or egg. So in case of lower animals or plants, you find that the gametes are almost identical, but this you don't find in higher. And this female gamete or the ovum generally has got food. It stores food. So when this fusion occurs, when the male and the female gamete fuses, the zygote that is formed, it will use up the food that is stored in the female gamete, and thus it develops. In initial stages of its development, it will be using the food that is stored in the female gamete. Okay, so you find there is a difference in female and the male gamete. The female gamete is non-motile, it is larger than the male gamete, and it generally has food stored. I'll not say that in all the cases the female gamete or the ovum stores the food. In case of human beings and in case of many animals, you find there is no food stored. So there, in such cases, the zygote, after being formed, will get attached to the uterine wall, to the wall of the uterus of the mother, and there, from the mother's body, the food is taken up by the zygote for its further development. But in case of the oviparous animals, like in in case of frogs and the reptiles, and in case of birds, the egg will definitely contain stored food. There will be stored food present, and this stored food will be used by the zygote after fusion. The zygote will be using the stored food for its development. So you find there is a difference in shape on size or nature of the male and the female gamete. And this difference that is present is the cause of the difference in the reproductive organ, the sex organs of, or the reproductive system or organs of male is quite different from that of the female. And the body design also, you find there is a difference in the body design also. The male's body design is quite different from the female body design. So that's about the gametes that are involved and about the features of sexual reproduction. Okay, now here you have got the diagram. Just have a look at this picture that you have. In case of asexual reproduction, a single parent gives rise to the new individual. But sorry, in case of asexual reproduction, a single parent will give rise to the individual, whereas in case of sexual reproduction, there are two parents involved, and the role of parent is to only produce gametes. That's their role, to produce gametes. So the genetic material of the parent is copied and passed to the next generation through these gametes. And as I said you, the gametes will have only half the number of chromosomes than that of the parent cells, the non-reproductive cells. That is because when the gametes will fuse, the chromosomal number, because half and half, that is full, so here the chromosomal number will be restored back. Okay, so the process involves the gametes here. Okay, now so that's about the process of sexual, the importance or the features of sexual reproduction. So before I conclude, let me tell you about the differences between asexual and sexual reproduction. Asexual reproduction involves a single parent, whereas there are two parents involved in sexual reproduction. There's no production of gametes, and there's no fusion, there's no formation and fusion of gametes in asexual reproduction, but the process of sexual reproduction involves gametes formation and fusion. The organisms are produced by mitotic division, by mitosis in case of asexual, but in case of sexual reproduction, where gametes are produced by meiosis, where the chromosomal number will become half. And then once a zygote is formed, the development of zygote to an individual will happen by repeated cell division, and that occurs by mitosis. The young ones of the asexually reproducing organisms are genetically identical, whereas in case of sexually reproducing organism, the young ones, which are also called as the offsprings, will be having some features of male and the other female parent, and there will be some characters which are neither present in the male and the or the female parent. It's all because of the those new combination that happens because of crossing over, because of the reshuffling of chromosomes or genes which occurs during meiosis or during gamete formation, and the random pairing of chromosomes that occur during the process of fertilization. So, in case of asexual reproduction, the variations that are produced are minor, and that's because of the error in DNA copying, which is also referred to as mutation. But here, in case of sexual reproduction, you find more variations are produced. I've just now said you why more and how more variations are produced. Asexual reproduction is not very useful for natural selection or evolution because the amount of variation produced is quite less. But sexual reproduction, it's quite useful for natural selection, for survival of the species, and for evolution to take place. The process of asexual reproduction is a faster mode. It's a faster method of multiplication. But sexual reproduction is a slower method of reproduction. So the examples I've already discussed. On the basis of the presentation, here's an assignment for you. The first question is, how is sexual reproduction advantageous over asexual reproduction? How is the chromosomal number maintained in sexually reproducing organisms? What is the difference between male and the female gamete? Differentiate between gamete and zygote. And why are more variations produced in sexually reproducing organisms?